Get Heavy Podcast, hosted by Craig Casamas and John Scheimer.
Hey, what's up, guys? Tonight on the podcast, I had my old buddy Barney Caudill, old Ventura staple, guy who's been around for a long time. I bought some of my first records from him at a record outlet when he worked there. We talked about that a little bit in our first interactions. He was in a band called Fakermark, which was one of the Ventura legendary staples from the late 90s, early 2000s era. So he's got a lot of great insight on, the world, punk rock, how he got into it, what his decisions were for stepping away from music to become an engineer, essentially. And then obviously he's got a great handle on politics and stuff like that. So it was a really great talk. I really appreciate him coming on, and please enjoy. Thanks. How's life otherwise, man?
Good.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's 2020. Good.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's about as good as it's gonna get, right?
Yeah, and there's nothing's wrong, so that's good, right?
Right. Yeah. Family's been good. You guys haven't been sick. No one got the COVID around yet. Nothing.
No one's been sick. Claudia and I still believe that we had it in the beginning, back in January.
Uh-huh.
And,
way in January, huh?
Yeah. So I got really, really sick. Gnarly flu, respiratory, and it got so bad I had to go to urgent care one night because I couldn't breathe.
Wow.
And so I go to urgent care, and they just say, oh, you have a virus, give it 2 weeks. And at that time we'd only heard of it, right? We'd only just heard it.
Barely. I've heard of it in China, even not even here,
Yeah. So there was a virus in China. But anyway, so a bunch of people at that, I don't know if I should say, but the factory in Oxnard that a lot of our friends work at, a bunch of people there got sick. Well, it was right after NAMM.
Right.
And an entire wing of the convention center was Chinese.
Right. Yeah.
And so don't tell me that it's not possible, right? It's totally possible.
For sure, dude. And I mean, if you've never been to NAMM, I'm sure everyone knows what it is, but massive music conference, fucking all the vendors show their new wares for the year. And you're talking, I worked at a couple of years, and you're talking tens of thousands, maybe even 100,000 fucking people coming through there over the week. I mean, probably more.
Just figure how many vendors are there. There's probably
hundreds, maybe thousands.
Probably 10,000.
There, yeah, very possible. Yeah, very.
In terms of total staff, and you figure if an entire wing of the convention center was Chinese, come on, the probability of it being here in January or sooner is very likely. We just didn't know what the hell we were dealing with.
Yeah.
So whatever.
Yeah, but
I believe I had it.
Have you been tested for it since?
So, they didn't really have any tests early on, right? So in April, I got a antibody test.
Yeah.
And the woman the phlebotomist, she goes, even if you had it, she goes, it's not going to show up. I said, why do you say? She goes, because antibodies don't last that long.
Right. Yeah.
So it turned out it was negative, but who knows? I because of how sick I was and the fact that it was just a gnarly respiratory infection, I think the chances are at least 50-50. And,
right.
Who knows?
Like Rosie got it. We in March we all had it, we think, and I had a very small version of it. I think I had some chest stuff, but nothing major. But Rosie completely lost her sense of smell and taste for a solid week.
Yeah,
the kids got stomach flus. Fucking everyone was puking all of a sudden. I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And then right then was maybe a week before the shutdown. We actually went camping with the Scheimers at the beach, right? We had heard about it and all this, and so the week before the shutdown, we all are camping at the beach, dude, and fucking King the boy, soon as we get home, starts puking, and you're like, oh fuck, you know what I mean? So here it is, and we think maybe stomach flu, whatever. But then Rosie got so weirdly sick that, she totally completely lost her sense of taste and smell. For a solid week, lost like 10 pounds. She didn't want to eat, you know what I mean? And then the baby didn't get it. I didn't really get it. But I was trying to straight up like deep breathe, like Wim Hof that shit out of my body.
Yeah.
I was like freaking out, doing like these deep breathing exercises, trying to strengthen my lungs and shit, taking tons of vitamins,
Yeah.
So I don't know. And then I got tested for it, the antibody test in June. Nothing, you know what I mean?
Same thing. Too long. Too much time passed.
But it's
so
such
I don't
a simple thing,
I lost a ton of weight, but I lose weight when I get the flu. So who knows?
Yeah. I rarely get sick, man. I rarely get sick. I really don't get. I mean, once every 5 years, I'll get like a real, actual fucking flu, unless it's a stomach bug or something. Maybe once every couple of years, but I haven't had anything for me in a long fucking time.
Yeah.
Which with all this COVID stuff, it makes me nervous. You know what I mean? Because
I'm nervous because I have issues and I've had asthma most of my life, and it's what's frightening about it, I think, is they say younger, healthier people typically have nothing to worry about. Okay, great, let's take that, let's go with that, except there's those there are the few who it completely fucks up, right? Or kills.
Floors them. Yeah.
And it's like, I've never played Russian roulette, and I don't think I would. And that's kind of how I feel with this, is like, maybe you'll be fine or maybe you'll fucking die.
It's like one or the other. It's like, I'm either going to live or I'm going to die. There's well, and also we're not that young anymore,
I know. Isn't that crazy?
I know you got a few years on me, but I don't feel that fucking young anymore, man.
Dude, it's crazy. Have you hit 40 yet?
No.
Oh, dude, it's going to fuck you up. It's going to fuck you up.
I actually just did the math on my birthday this last year, because I thought I already thought I was 39. I had no idea, dude. Like, Rosie fucked me up and told me my birthday, like told me my age one year, and I went with that, dude. And I, for a full year, thought I was a year older than I was.
That's
funny. I was like, oh man, I did the math this year. I was like, hey, I'm 38. Fuck yeah, dude. Like, I think I just got an extra year.
Right on.
Yeah, but
when I turned 40, dude, I was like, I was messed up for like 4 years. Because I couldn't handle it.
Who gives a shit?
I still can't handle it. It's just weird. I think it's weird. Like, we don't, we partly, I think, culturally, the culture that we're in, there's a youthful component to it, right? And just sort of realizing there's all these things that we see in life that we gauge, or that our benchmarks that we use. And like when we were kids, pro athletes were men, and then they were our age, and now they're kids. Like, I call them kids, right? Because they're 20. I mean, they're literally almost 30 years younger than me. It's freaking weird, man.
Yeah.
So it's just a lot of stuff, like, relative, that you kind of try to grasp. And I'm almost 50. I'm a couple years away from 50, and a lot of our friends are now 50, and it's just weird.
Well, it's like, I remember when I was the young guy hanging out with you guys, the 86 crew and all those, you know what I mean? Especially like when you were in Fakermark, and when the bands are going, it's like we were the young little shits, you know what I mean? And we're probably the second generation of you know what I mean? Like, compared to you guys. But now it's like, there's 2 more generations below me now, dude. And I'm like,
okay. I don't know any of them.
I don't either, really. But, I know the generation right below me.
Yeah.
And I know there's a whole other group of kids coming up right now, which is,
that's good.
It's been great to see, like, the music, well, before the world got shut down. But, I mean, the fucking shows were going off again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was cool to see punk bands and music coming back, because for a long time, there was a dry spell once, kind of, you guys went away, Glass and Ashes went away, you know what I mean? Wrath kept going and all that, but and there's always a music scene, but that whole, like, that era, that Kinji Shack era, all that stuff, you know what I mean? Those Kinji Shack shows were fucking legendary.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? God,
yeah, I missed a lot of those, but I don't even remember which ones I saw anymore, but I do remember, what was that band? The grindcore band, Bird,
Ooh.
help me out, man.
Meat Eater? I don't know. I'm
No,
just saying a name. I don't know.
gosh darn it.
They played the
Anyway,
Shack?
and they were so good. This was like probably towards the end, when they were doing shows there.
Yeah.
Um, not Birds in a Row. They're that French band on Death Wish. Come on. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was fun.
Yeah. Well,
But
remember, I know that we saw Victims there together, right? Didn't we? Or I think there were some really amazing shows that Kenji Shack. Like for people that don't know, was like our buddy Kenji had a place. Basically, he lived on a farm in Oxnard, and he had a shack that a handful of our friends basically squatted in. They turned it into a pretty cool little DIY fucking house, but they would straight up do shows outside, like in the yard, you know what I mean, and run the power from the house, and shit got wild, dude. I mean, couches were burned, pits were started, you know what I mean? Lots of chaos, lots of fucking, the shows were insane, you know what I mean? There'd be 200 plus people in the middle of the fucking of a field almost essentially. It was just like it was wild, and then the Halloween parties on top of that, were ridiculous, But you've always like surprised me with your music knowledge, you know what I mean? And you've always been this. There you go. You've always been into some serious like heavy shit, you know what I mean? Like that's why me and you connected because, in the world of Brooke and the 86 guys and all that, they all like and we all like the same stuff. Your Archers of Loaf and your residents and all that, all that stuff. But like me and you connected because you like seriously fucking heavy tunes, you know what I mean? And,
I do, but I even, I had my time of sort of veering away and kind of getting more into either the indie stuff like Archers or, the whole kind of early mid 90s, a lot of the indie rock stuff, Superchunk and Pavement and shit like that, which I loved all that stuff. I mean, Archers of Loaf, it's kind of hard to deny how amazing they are. But, you take someone like Fugazi, and Fugazi for me was kind of like the bridge. Like, Mindset, Fugazi was a hardcore band that didn't play hardcore music, right? And then they kind of spawned this whole, they influenced so many bands of that indie sort of era, that for me, they were sort of the bridge between the two, the hardcore and the indie rock kind of stuff. And, but I was like, it was weird in I guess the early 90s. I literally grew up punk rock, right? Like I started really young, and it was all a really, I guess, fortuitous, it just happened. I had a babysitter who was like a metalhead, right? So this is like in the 80s, right?
nice.
And
Man,
she was
woman, chick,
total,
yeah.
total hesh chick.
That's
And
awesome.
she gave me, I was in like fourth grade, and she gave me a cassette tape. And I remember, I recall who made it for her, but I'll leave his name out. But anyway, the cassette was Minor Threat, Out of Step, Suicidal's first album, Peter and the Test Tube Babies,
Nice.
and Bad Religion's How Can Hell Be Any Worse?
Okay.
Right. So I'm like, if you're in fourth grade, so what, I'm like 12?
Not even. You're like 9.
11?
9, 10, 11, 10, 11 maybe. You know what I mean?
So let's call it 11,
11,
whatever. And so anyway, in fifth grade, I met a kid named Lewis, and he lived actually right next door to Montalvo School. And he was into metal and stuff. And he and I became friends, and I started going to his house. Well, he had a sister in high school, and she was punk rock. And so like, not only did I fall in love with her, but she had an album collection that I didn't have access to. So Lewis and I became good friends, right? And
Yeah.
we burning the Rodney on the Rock albums, Crass albums, GBH was always, they were one of my first favorite bands and still are today. But so I got into, hardcore music at a really young age and stuck with it, and then all the years playing. So skipping ahead, kind of when the 90s came around, everything for me was always harder, faster, harder, faster, harder, faster.
Yep.
And some of the early grindcore stuff, I always loved the music, even death metal. I liked the music. I couldn't handle the vocals.
Right.
I didn't mind if they were like yelling, but when they were
like
growls, I
yeah.
couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, so once I heard that vocal style, I was done. Like I wanted to hear, something like, the singer of Born Against, he's like really kind of yelling it out, or lots of hardcore bands, Youth of Today, I think of them. And anyway, again, coming back to the 90s, part of it is being a musician. You find different inspiration from different places, and I think just the endless pursuit of harder, faster music. When I heard music that was more melodic and kind of more, I guess, mellow, if you will, I kind of got into it, and I really enjoyed it. And I think it was sort of a break, sort of a change. So when you guys were, middle schoolers coming in, and you were into, whether it was His Hero or Osrotten or whatever. I was like, I was like, it's good, but whatever. I was into kind of a new, at that time, kind of a newer style hardcore, which people call it screamo, which I kind of don't like that. But
well, it's that broad melodic hardcore genre.
Really,
right?
Yeah. But to me, a lot of it was, it was definitely melodic. But it's always just hardcore. I could take a band like 400 Years, who's super melodic, but they're hardcore through and through. Or that what was that? I don't remember. There was a label, I think, from Richmond that was putting out a lot of good music in the 90s. Sleepy Time Trio, 400 Years, Engine Down was they were definitely more on the melodic side. I wasn't a big fan of theirs, but
I actually did like that. I like that band a lot, actually. Engine Down.
Frodis, remember Frodis?
Yep. Oh yeah, I remember Frodis.
Yeah, and they were, to me, that was like the hardcore that I was into. And so it's kind of funny that it actually took me probably till the late 90s, actually, is when I kind of went back and started listening to the crust stuff, Hero, and whether it was crust or more grindcore type, Converge. Converge is a weird band because I've always kind of thought of them as a grindcore band.
Yeah, it's weird. They're a weird one, man. They hit a lot of different genres at the same time, but they're unlike anyone. There's those very few bands, your Converge, your Neurosis, your fucking all these bands where all of a sudden they come out and then that sets the bar for what you can be done, and what I mean. It's like everything Converge puts out, it's like there hasn't been a bad fucking record, especially since like Jane Doe. What I mean? Those first few records are great, and they're really raw, but you had to be into hardcore, what I mean? Like that Boston style hardcore to really appreciate those first couple records, which didn't appeal to me at all, what I mean?
Okay.
But when Jane Doe came out, and I liked them, what I mean? Yeah. But it was like the same thing as like Cave In, Beyond Hypothermia. Like that was a great fucking record. But when Until Your Heart Stops came out, that fucking record spoke
Yeah.
to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that era, that late 90s era, when that, I guess it would have been late 90s, when that stuff started coming out, that's what fucking really caught my attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I didn't like the tough guy element at all. You know what I mean?
I never did either. I mean, floor punching and all that shit, it's just weird to me. But that would I'd see guys at shows throwing just like random fists and shit, and I would usually end up either pouncing on them or somehow like grabbing a hold of them and throwing them outside or something, because I just we were at the Sound City, Rock City in Camarillo, and shoot, we saw I think Nails was playing there. Right? Did Nails play there? And this guy was just throwing haymakers and landing wherever they would land, and he hit a friend of mine, and he actually whiffed me, like he missed me by inches. And then at that point he was just like a magnet for me, and I just kept watching him,
zero in on him,
just watching him, and just watching kind of his behavior and his just complete lack of care for other people, and he was whacking people, and I just couldn't handle it anymore. I pounced on him and ran him out. How they have a door to the front. Ran him out, he fell, and I just freaking landed on him and pounced on him, and I'm screaming at him like an angry father, like, stop doing that.
And thank God you didn't like that shit, Barney, because for those of you who can't tell, Barney is a huge man. A menacing, fucking terrifyingly big man. Thank God you're nice. Thank God you didn't like to fucking pick up change and floor punch. You know what I mean? Because there might be actual dead bodies in Ventura.
That would suck. That would suck.
But there's nothing that would make me more frustrated than people trying to have a good time and some dude just wants. And it's always like, if you're at the show where it's a hardcore show and every dude is doing that, I understand. Then it's not my fucking place to be anywhere near it, because it's not my. But when you're at a show and it's a fucking fun pit and there's one dickhead that wants to fucking throw the backwards fist or the kicks or whatever, you can't help but zero in on him like a ballistic fucking missile, dude.
I agree.
Because it disrupts the whole entire fucking flow of the show. You know what I mean? Everyone's having a good time, except for now no one can be in the pit because there's one guy fucking throwing kicks. I would always make it a point to fucking, try to maul him. You know what I mean? Just fucking maul him.
I did that. I had to do that at a Jawbreaker show once. I mean, fucking Jawbreaker. Come on, man. Like, and there's some angry guy in the pit. I'm like, no, dude, like, you're hurting good people. And so you just got to stop. But I know I kind of digressed from what we were talking about, the hard music. But so like I said, it was Gavin Peters actually turned me on. He and I were sharing a lot of music amongst ourselves, and he actually gave me Jane Doe, and so that was like that was a good change. Hearing that album, there's always been albums in your life, right, where you heard the first time and you were just floored by it, and you're just like, playing it every single day on repeat, and that's. Jane Doe did that for me, and so did, ironically, years after it came out, but Monuments to Thieves.
Oh, yeah.
That album is just so insanely good. And so, yeah, I love, that's kind of like part of playing too, I was in, I started playing in bands when I was 12. And through most of my life, I was never in a band that I loved. Okay.
Oh, really?
No, I played music that I liked, but you got to, you're putting 4 people together, sometimes 5 people together. And so each of those people love something different. And so I never played what I loved, even if I liked it. And, when I was a little kid playing shows, I didn't know what I was doing, so I loved it, right? But I loved what I was doing, and I wasn't a good enough musician to do anything about it,
Right.
right? And
well, at 12,
but
I mean, you have no right to be that good of a musician, you know.
right.
It's like none of
So
us are. Yeah.
yeah, and so I just noticed my screen name is kind of wacky, but
Oh, it is. I didn't even notice.
um
There you go.
uh
Yeah, it's a I mean that that's hard. I mean, that's hard, man. I don't know. It's hard for me to wrap my head around because I've always been the main contributor in, I'd say, 98% of my band. So I never wrote anything I didn't love. You know what I mean? Like that's a weird thing to fucking have to be in. You know what I mean? Or
so
to admit to yourself. You know?
well, no, so like put it like this. So I too feel that I wrote the majority of music in most of the bands I was in.
Sure.
So when I was a kid, the band I was in, Moral Image, we had one guy in the band that was a superior musician to all of us. And so we all kind of like, sort of like gave him the go. And then he ended up eventually leaving the band. And the four of us who remained were kind of all on the same level. And we had tons of fun together. We played fun shows and parties. And
That's a great name, by the way.
Moral Image. Yeah,
such
we
a
were
good name.
actually Moral Image part 2 because so the guy, the good musician, he was older than all of us, and he was in a band with our guitar player's brother, who was the singer of the original Moral Image.
Yeah.
And they ended. And so when we were a band, we called our band Lost Cause, and we later found out that there was an English band with that name.
Yeah.
So we were searching for a name, and Rich, our guitar player, he's the guitar player in Hyman Blasters.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
Okay, Rich Gooden.
Yeah.
And so he said, why don't we call it Moral Image? It stuck. We went with it, and that was that. And so in that band, post Richard, it was really like literally, 3-chord punk, right? It was just really simple, fast, was kind of one of our goals, fast and hard. And anyway, so in that band, like I said, it was fun and I loved the band, but again, I wasn't a good enough musician to do anything otherwise, right? So skipping ahead, I went through a lot of bands that did nothing, right? You're experimenting with people, and it either works or it doesn't. But so jumping way ahead to Skinny Rogers. Remember that band?
I never saw it,
Okay.
but I remember the name, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was very young at the time, you know?
Okay, so musically, I liked our band a lot. Hated our singer.
Yeah.
Like, not personally hated him, hated the way he sang. But our guitar player, I was playing bass at the time, and our guitar player and drummer, they really liked him. And I fucking hated him. And I could never get over it. And so to the point where I kind of kept complaining, and I think, everyone kind of knew that I was disgruntled, and he ended up leaving. I don't think we kicked him out. I think he just was he could tell that I didn't like him, and he left, and I took over the vocals. And it was funny because we kept the same songs, but I changed all the lyrics, all the melodies and stuff.
Sure.
Well, I had never sung before, ever.
Right.
And I was terrible. I was just horrible at it.
Even worse than
I was so bad. Oh, so bad. And but what that did do was that kind of opened up my transition to becoming more of a vocalist and playing like, damn it, I'm going to play the music I want to play.
Right.
And so that's when I started writing more, like, I'm just going to call it noise, like, kind of that 90s, kind of off math rock, whatever you want to call it, but really heavy. sometimes melodic, but screamy,
Mhm.
like angry vocals. And that's when we formed the band Hyper Attractive. And that was like, we were around during the kind of the really good, the prime living room years.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And
Like the original one or which one?
well, the original one.
The original one.
And then, you know, so it kind of went it was the original one, then it moved, and then it moved back, right?
Yeah, I think so.
But the original one at the what was it, some kind of a community center or whatever?
Yeah, it ended up being a church. It ended up being the
Yeah.
hard to find show space, right? Is that the one you're talking about? Or are you talking about
Yeah. But in a different room.
Right. Yes.
But that era of music I freaking loved. So Hyper Attractive was the first band I was ever in that I loved. I loved the music that we were playing. We had talent in all four musicians. We were friends, and I loved it. And I just loved what we were playing. And we were playing super fun shows with really great bands. And it was an era that I freaking loved. And when that band ended, I was like devastated. It was like, you know, ending, you know, getting dumped by somebody you're in love with who, you know, they don't love you anymore. And that was really hard for me. And it actually took my motivation to play away. It did completely. Wow. And so that was like, I'm going to say 97-ish.
Yeah, it would have had to been, because if that was like in the Unabombers era, the Patient Zero era, that was like one of the first fucking shows I ever went to. Now, I don't know that you guys played, but one of the very first real punk shows I went to was at that Hard to Find, or the living room, and it was like Patient Zero, Unabombers, fuck, I don't know who else, you know what I mean? But I got Buck like completely made fun of me, you know what I mean? That was the first second I met him, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Made me feel like a total moron, you know, because I was like a Christian punker, so I was already like target on my back for him, you know what I mean?
He was so good at doing that.
I know, he's a fucking pro, dude. R.I.P. Buck, you know?
He's the best.
But were you working at Record Outlet at the time?
Yeah.
You were?
Yeah, I started there in 92.
Yeah, so I remember like one of my first real I really had to think about this a while ago, but I was talking, you know, Bill, I'm playing with Bill now, right? So Bill's in Tongue.
Oh, okay.
Benson, right? So anyway, we were talking, and I completely fucking forgot he worked there too, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember we were talking about old times there, and I remember as like a very young kid coming into that shop and walking up to you at the counter with a fucking Dead Kennedys record, and I can't remember what it was, but you're all, nah, kid, that's the wrong one. Go put it back and get this one. And I'm all, what do you mean? And you're all, it's the wrong one. And he gave me like fresh fruit, or he gave me something like, he told me to get some other record. And I just remember you being like so dead serious that I was all, okay. And I just like walked back and I grabbed that one, and you're all, that's the one.
That's so funny.
Like, okay, dude. You know, you weren't mean about it. You didn't insult me at all.
Yeah.
You just like, you could tell I was like totally lost, and like I think I had like Misfits fucking Earth AD, you know what I mean? And I can't remember whatever the shitty Dead DK album is now. I can't even fucking remember.
I couldn't really remember now.
One, but you literally, you're all, that's the wrong one, dude.
The wrong one. So funny. So apparently,
what do you mean the wrong one, dude?
Apparently, I did that to a number of people with a number of records, and so because I've heard this story time and again, and frankly, I don't recall doing it, but I'm kind of happy I did.
Yeah, no, 100%, dude. Because I got to become that person like at Salzer's for years, you know, like you could see it, like you'd have a kid with a stack of fucking CDs, and it's like, you should really be listening to this one. You know what I mean? And fucking 99% of the time, you're dead ass right. You know, but you did it with no ego. You did it with no like sarcasm in your voice, not a hint of like making fun of me. You just like flat out is like, here's the facts, dude. Like, so funny. And I always remember, because I'm like this at you. You know what I mean? I'm like, you know, all of fucking 12 years old, like staring up into the sky, you know?
That's funny.
And, I remember it was Zach maybe?
Yeah.
And like Zach just started laughing like super hard. You know what I mean?
That's
when I did the walk of shame back to the vinyl bin and then back up to the counter. You know, was just so funny, man.
That's hilarious.
Stuff like we were talking about that stuff a couple of weeks ago at practice, and it's like, God damn, dude, it was totally Barney. I didn't even think about it. You know what I mean? I mean, it never, in all the many years I've known you since, it's like, it's so funny, man. You're just all wrong one, kid. That's not the one you want. You don't want that one. Piece of shit record.
Working in a record store was such a rad experience, and like opening up music possibilities for me. That was a good time.
Oh man, I mean, those record outlet days were killing. Because I grew up in Montalvo, too. Yeah. I know you grew up there, right? And
yeah.
It was just the close. I mean, Salzer's was there, but Salzer's had a bit of like, I don't know if John was there then, but there was a bit of snootiness to it, and it didn't feel like a record store like Record Outlet did. And even though Salzer's has a huge history of being a record store, there was something a little more, I don't know, just like fucking authentic about Record Outlet back then. You know what I mean?
I mean, Salzer's was that kind of big place. I mean, I don't want to say, I would never call them a corporate store, but they were kind of, they definitely kind of had the corporate wannabe thing going on, at least through some part of their existence. When I was a kid, so I grew up in Montalvo too, and so Salzer's was relatively close, but they were like the big store, right? And so Jailhouse Records was up on Victoria, where Victorian Telegraph.
Oh, I don't even remember that one.
And they were like the indie record store. Okay. And but the cool thing, like Salzer's, I bought my first punk rock everything at Salzer's. I got my very first punk rock t-shirt at Salzer's. It was a aggression shirt. And Israel from False Confession worked at Salzer's. And we would just go in there because he was an older punk rock guy, and we would just go in, and he was already over it, right? He was like, he wasn't really punk rock at that time. I mean, I think he kind of was in, I mean, as a kid, I thought he was like a death rocker or whatever, and the False Confession was gone, and he was in a band called The Rain.
Okay.
And but nonetheless, he was an old punk rock guy, so we would go in and just kind of bug him, and that was fun. But I bought a lot. They had the store across the street where the rental car place is now. That used to be they had their used records over there.
Oh, really?
Oh my God, Craig, and it was like they had a ton of records, and so we would go in there, and you would be able to score just a ton of good punk rock records.
Yeah.
And so yeah, Salzer's was big as far as not influencing me, but being there for me, to feed me my needs, punk rock albums, and being in the vicinity of Nardcore, in the 80s was a big influence on us too. And Salzer's kind of was like, they had all the Nardcore stuff we wanted, whereas Jailhouse, you could find, it was more worldly. Like we could find, New York hardcore, a lot of English hardcore, pretty much whatever you wanted. The very first record that I bought solely based on the album cover, knowing nothing of the band at the time, was Agnostic Front's Victim in Pain.
Nice, dude.
And I'm just like, this looks fucking punk. Like, this looks hardcore, man. And so I bought Victim in Pain, having no idea what they sounded like. And that was monumental.
Right.
I mean, that album just shreds.
It's such a good record, dude.
And, so I went through a lot of, I had a lot of influences, and, I kind of wanted to circle back real quick to the band thing. And when
Excuse me.
Hyper Attractive ended, it sort of ended my love of music. And it was actually in 1999, I moved into Hastings. And Brooks just like, dude, you got to play. You have to play music again.
Yeah.
And so the first iteration of Fakermark was actually it was Nels, Brooke, and I, and then Pat Bailey.
Oh, okay.
And we brought Pat in to play bass, and Pat's a drummer,
Right.
so it just didn't work out. But and then we met Nick like shortly thereafter, and
Right.
so Fakermark formed in '99.
Yeah.
And so Fakermark, it's funny, I started playing in bands when I was 12.
Mm-hmm.
But it wasn't until I was like 25, 26, 27 where I was in bands that I loved what I was doing.
Right.
And so, part of it was we matured and we learned how to play music. And part of it was, again, playing the music that you wanted to play.
Right.
And Fakermark ended actually because of me. I didn't want it to end. It was just at a period of my life where I had too much on my plate.
Yeah.
And being responsible, the thing that made the most sense to get rid of was the band.
Yeah.
And I hated the decision to do it, but I had to.
It kills you, man. It's like cutting off your own legs. You know what I mean? It's like gnawing them off with a fucking screwdriver,
Yeah.
It's so hard to make. I made that decision for the rap, dude, and it fucking killed me. I didn't want to touch a guitar for 5 years almost.
Right.
You know what I mean?
It's crazy.
But you like me, I remember me and you talked about, when Fakermark, because Fakermark was such a monumental time in Ventura. Everyone talks about the Nardcore scene and what Nardcore did for punk rock and all that. But Ventura's fucking scene was, very fucking like, it got legendary at certain points. Every band in Ventura was a fucking killer. And no matter who showed up out of town, whatever headliner showed up, you guys, fucking Glass and Ashes or Kinji or whoever was around at the time, there's about 1,000 bands I'm forgetting. They better fucking bring it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because besides the headliner, there's 150 people that are showing up. And they're going to fucking rip their clothes off. And, myself included, you know what I mean? And we're going to have a good fucking time. And
always had a good time.
It's always going to be a big hug fest. You know what I mean? And like, there was many, many times I saw headlining bands that thought they had some clout. And then you would watch them, piles of people fall out of the fucking room after you guys played. Or after Glass and Ashes played, or after, whatever, when the Rats started or whatever. So it was like, got to the point where we had to start telling people that come to Ventura, it's like, hey, like, I understand you guys headline, but not here. Like, it's gonna backfire on you.
Yeah.
Like, do you want people to watch the band? Because we should definitely put Glass and Ashes last, or Fakermark should play last, or fucking,
I don't think else, I don't know if we ever did do that, but Glass and Ashes definitely had. What an amazing band. And I'll be honest here, I always liked Kinji best.
Really? Okay.
Oh my God, I was so sad that they whatever. I don't even know what you call that. It's a transformation because they didn't break up, right?
No, they just turned into something else.
Glass and Ashes songwriting was amazing, but and part of it probably was maturity, but Kinji had this, I don't even know, like raw, youthful thing. And it's funny because you think, okay, it's the same 4 guys and they essentially are playing the same music, but I think the song selections, and I think again, probably maturity played a big part of it, but Kinji was just so good.
I know.
And then Glass and Ashes, talent wise, they just, I think they were the best among all of us. And
for 100%, dude. Yeah.
And not just based on their success, but as friends, and they were so good. And it's the dynamic between, let's take the drums out of it because the drums were great, but the dynamic between the 2 guitars and the bass was just always so goddamn good. And it made me jealous actually that they were writing those songs and doing it so well. And Jesse's playing and the melodies that he brought into these really hard songs was just so beautiful. The way they composed, they were truly amazing.
But let's not devalue the fact that, you know, in Fakermark, you guys would go up and, you know, you, Nick, and Brooke are on it, A game, and Nels, without a doubt, is the drunkest human you've ever met in your life. And you think there's no fucking way he's getting through this one.
Yeah.
And nails it every fucking time. You know? Nels might hold the record for most like impossible comebacks, you know, on a show. I'm talking to him before the show, and I'm all, are you alive? Like, what, you know, and Nels is not like that. You know what I mean? We all had our fucking party times, and I love that man to death, but I've never in my life seen someone like so out of their fucking mind. And then as soon as the guitar was on, they're all, woo!
And he was on it. He was always on it. Like, always.
Wow, dude.
Great. I don't know, man.
It was like
maybe he needed to be drunk to play.
It was like it was a punt return to touchdown.
It was good.
Like,
yeah.
It was ridiculous, dude. I mean, you know, it was just such fun times back then, man. And you know, it's hard for me. Obviously, nostalgia kicks in. It's hard for me to imagine there will be another time like that. You know what I mean?
For us, Craig.
For us.
So what's the thing is it's happened. It will happen for the kids, right? It'll happen for the kids, and that's awesome. And you know, that's part of you know, after Fakermark, there was, you know, a couple of years where I was busy, but I've always wanted to play. I would still play today, but I kind of went through this self-conflict thing where, you know, the music I want to play, you know, punk or hardcore has always been sort of a youth music, and I'm old now, but I realize other people are still doing it.
Oh,
right?
Dude, 100%. I mean,
and so I'm like, why can't I still do it? I still have all the same, you know, my ideology hasn't changed. The same things that made me angry as a kid make me angry today, even if I'm personally less affected by those things. But I want to play hardcore music. I love hardcore music, and you know, somewhere, you know, Nick Dalton, you know, he and I were trying to play for a while, and he's like, what kind of, you know, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to rip people's faces off.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the music I want to play. I want to play you know, kind of a sonic, you know, just assault on the audience. And I don't care, you know, about a fan base or making records. I enjoy playing live.
Right.
And I want to play music that will just kick people's ass, you know, if it's 5 people or 100 people, you know, I just loud, hard, fast. Those are things that I like, you know.
Yeah,
and,
man.
I still want to do it. I still got the guitars over there, and you know, I don't really sit around writing music too often, but I'm always writing songs in my head. It's kind of funny, but
well, it's just so hard, man. You know, you shift, you know, as you get older, your gears shift, and you got kids, I got kids, you have a fucking career. I remember like many years ago, you're like, I'm going to college, and I'm like, what? You know, like, and it was like, you know, it was like at a time where it's like, you're a full grown fucking adult, you know what I mean? Like, why are you going back to school? And it's like, you know, I know that you do, you know, basically, you know, what is it, like hydraulics engineering or something? I mean, what is it now? It's like,
yeah. So for many years, I was a waterworks engineer. So yes, it's hydraulics, but not like mechanical engineering where
a lot of people don't know that hydraulics refers to water.
Water, like municipal water work.
Right.
And so I did a lot of water and sewer, municipal design, pumping and treatment and stuff. And so now where that led me is I actually manage a water district. So
right. And I mean, it's just so wild because I mean, first of all, like back when we were younger, to imagine that like bands that we listened to then would be doing their 30-year reunions and getting
Right.
paid $50,000 a show.
Right.
All this thing, like the length of hardcore and punk, like the life expectancy was never gonna be 50 years. Like, you know what I
Right.
mean? Like in my mind, it would have been nothing like that, you know, but it is that, you know. So, you know, when you say like, man, you know, the ageism thing kicks in on you and it's a young man's game, it's fucking not, dude. I mean, you look at Neurosis fucking killing it, probably better than they've ever been. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that shit just ages with time. You know what I mean? So like with you playing music again, I'm sure you could absolutely. But the problem is what I was getting to is that with life, with kids, with this, I blink and a month fucking goes by. We talked
Right.
about doing this podcast a month ago, and
Yeah.
I literally like yesterday was like, fuck, dude, you know, like we were supposed to do it, but I've
Yeah.
had about 6 billion things happen since
Right.
then. You know what I mean?
And I'm
It's
in
like,
the same boat.
you know, and when it comes to writing music, it's like I still have. It took me a long time to get it back, but I still am possessed by having to sit down and fucking play. You know, I've made like playing riffs and writing riffs like part of therapy for me. You know, when I'm stressed out, I'll disappear into the garage and fucking make noise for a minute because it's either that or I'm going to scream at my kids, which I
Right.
probably do too much too. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, I've learned how to build it into my daily habits. You know what I mean? But and obviously, you know, we both have big boy fucking jobs. You know what I mean? So the time thing is, I'm at a point now where I have more time. I'm out of the field. I'm running an apprentice, you know, school and all these, you know, different things, and I have a little fucking time to breathe. And it's like
Yeah.
for the first time. This is actually today is my 1 year anniversary from taking a job from the local 12.
Is that right?
Yeah, so
Nice.
you know, I've been like, you know, a local 12 instructor for a year now, but
That's great.
and it's great, you know what I mean?
I was
But,
stoked when you got in there. I thought that's a good move. That's
dude,
definitely a good move.
you know, so happy to be there, you know what I mean? It just and it's really, yes, I lost money. I fucking took a huge pay cut going over there, you know. It's not a unlivable pay cut, you know what I mean?
Right.
But you know, what you're making out in the field with overtime and all that shit is fucking, you know, you're losing a serious amount of money, but you know what it
Also very hard on you.
well, yeah. I mean, look, dude. You know, grayer and shit. You know what I mean? You can't. You live 24 hours a day on call, and it can fucking drain on you. So I started really thinking, like, when the job came, I said, what do I want, dude? I want time. I want fucking time. Right. I missed a lot of my kids, you know, early life. I missed a lot of fucking things. I mean, I made it to birthdays and all that shit, but you know, there's a lot of shit I missed, man. You know, and I'm in the rare position now where I'm able to carve out the time for myself, which is really nice. And now that our kids are about the same age, you know,
right.
Like they're self-sufficient. They can, they can fucking, you don't have to tend to every need anymore, you know? So you are at the time where you can start carving that shit out for yourself. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'd love to see it. I mean, cause I know your musical taste and I know your talent. It'd fucking probably be terrifying. You know what I mean?
I would love for it to be.
Yeah, it'll happen. I mean, you know, you just got to make it happen. But
it's
that's part of that like weird punk rock shit. I talk about it all the time. Is like, you know, you've used this like DIY ethics to, first of all, advance yourself in a career that's engineering is fucking impossibly hard. You know what I mean? It's like it's so fucking hard. I'm a moron. I can count some grades for you. You know what I mean? I can make you some pads and build you a road, but design it? No, you know, I'm out.
But
you know what I mean?
The thing is you can, and that's kind of how I grew in the field was by experience.
Uh-huh.
So your experience in the field would translate into the design side of it, and that's kind of what happened with me. Is I had the practical experience that, you know, carried me along, and the other thing was I just had a knack for it. I clicked with it, and you know, I'm lucky, right? Because not everybody finds that where shit just clicks together, and so I definitely got lucky, and you know, I worked really hard, and like you just said, you know, I had years with no vacations, and maybe I had days off but no vacations, and so being here where I am now, very, very happy. I've worked a long time to get to here, And so, now I can do some of those things, and have time, make time for the kids, take a vacation, do stuff like that. And it's a big deal, but
yeah, but that ability, like all of us have, growing up playing punk and doing shows and booking a show and taking a chance on your own self and eating shit when it falls through and no one else to blame but you. Like that stuff goes so far into the real world, because most people at, my age or your age, they decide to, for you to go all in on yourself and take a chance and go to fucking college and finish an engineering degree and all this shit. Like a lot of people
actually, I dropped out.
Well, okay, fine. You got the fucking job, right?
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
Yeah, how many engineers get to drop out and still get the job? Punks.
Right,
that's how many.
Right. No, that's actually why I dropped out, because I already had the job.
See, yeah. So it's like, fuck it, dude. But I see this huge parallel, line that comes from the people like me and you and John Scheimer and all these people that have made their own niche in their own world and decided to take it somewhere else and make it somewhere else. And those people tend to do well. I did really well quick, and you did really well quick, and what I mean. And it's because you're willing to probably stand up when it's your fucking fault and be like, dude, it's my fault. I fucked it up. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And ownership, taking ownership, and what I mean, all that stuff. I just find that stuff translates so quick. You know what I mean, into the real fucking world. Because most people can't do it. Most people can't fucking. They can always point the finger and say it's someone else's fault, or you know what I mean? There's always a reason it's fucked up or this and that. And it's like, well, dude, sometimes it's just you, man. You fucking need to put the work in.
You gotta own it. It's true. No, absolutely. It's I spent a lot of time and a lot of effort to try to make sure I wasn't that guy, who and I don't mean not taking the blame. I would always take, I would own up to something if I caused a problem of any. I tried to not make the mistakes, and I mean that too. Like I tried really, really hard to do well at what I was doing, and sort of risk avoidance by trying to prevent the mistakes before they happen. Everyone makes mistakes, right? It's going to happen, but when you're working and your work is being heavily scrutinized, right, especially your work is being heavily scrutinized. And the work I did was very, they look at that with a microscope,
Oh yeah.
And well, you're building literally public works, right? You're working on highways and stuff, and I'm working on water infrastructure. It matters.
You cut corners on a fucking water structure, guess what? It don't work, or it blows up, or fucking. Right. If I cut corners on building a bridge, it's a catastrophic fucking failure. You know what I mean? Like, and there's a reason those things are in place. I mean, I'll be full disclosure. I've been sitting with plans going, this doesn't fucking work. I don't know what this fucking engineer is talking about. And you do see, and maybe you can kind of speak to this, but the last 3-4 years of my career, I saw a lot of fucking guys coming straight out of college, engineer degrees, fucking now they're a fucking inspector. They have had zero field experience. They're running at me with the fucking standards. You can't do this. It says right here. You know what I mean? And I got in trouble. I slapped the book out of one guy's hand once, onto the floor, because it had nothing to do with what I was doing. You know what I mean? I said, why don't you fucking look around? You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of that type of shit that happens, but a lot of these guys, like with you having previous experience in the field and understanding how shit works, probably it makes your job a lot fucking easier.
It does.
You know that it just doesn't work that way.
Right.
Sometimes the plan is not going to transfer to the fucking the ground, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with like booking a fucking tour. Tour looks great on paper. You know what I mean? I booked a bunch of tours, all looked great on paper. I mean, you get to the city and you're like, oh my God, the kid that booked the show is 16 and he can't show up now because he's grounded. So
wow,
like there's no one to open the door.
Wow.
Everything looks good on paper, But I had a really hard time with some of the guys that were brand new that just had no frame of reference for how the world works,
That's one thing that's really interesting about the broad engineering field, if you will. We'll talk about civil engineering because that's where you and I both work. But kids who come out of school with no practical experience, there's a lot of stuff that you learn in school that you have to unlearn
As soon as you
when
get
you
out.
get out in the field, because things change. The reality of putting things together, construction, is not necessarily what comes from a textbook. And we hired I'll make this quick, but we hired an engineer at my old office, and I was telling her how to do something, and she was arguing with me, telling me that it couldn't be done. And I said, well, of course it can. Here, I was trying to help her do it. And she said, well, in my materials class, I learned that this was, whatever. She goes, you can't do that. And I'm like, you can. I said, you need to forget what you learned in school and just, and it was like a problem, like an all day problem. And it's, practical experience, and that applies to everything, not just
really
the work that the field that we're in. It applies to everything that and we can't really teach that in a classroom, right? You got to get out there and experience it. And that's part of our the American education system. Just another flaw there.
Deeply
But
flawed.
yeah.
I've always said that high school, even when I was in high school, I thought, I read a statistic. Basically, you retain like a 10th grade level when you actually graduate high school. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I thought, why not fucking do 9 and 10 normal school? Then, if you want to decide to focus on a trade, you know what I mean, or something, maybe there's some ROP programs you can focus on for 2 fucking years. And then now when you get out of high school, you got 2 years of a fucking trade under your belt, whether it's construction, whether it's auto shop, whether it's welding, whether it's fucking carpentry, whatever. You know what I mean? Or if you decide that you want to go for the academic, you continue the academic.
I think it's a real shame that we don't have the trade, focus at, young, high school age, the ROP, that kind of stuff, because we had it, when I was in high school.
Yeah.
And it was important for, some kids getting their start at life. And, not everybody is cut out for academics.
And I'm definitely not.
Yeah, I mean, teaching trades are hugely important, and our education has been so focused on college. And, think about that too. Look at the cost of college nowadays and the debt that people have accrued. I mean, it makes you kind of think, why the focus on higher education? Was it all really to, earn money? Was it about
to put a whole entire
revenue?
Generation in debt so they'll fucking never get out? You know what I mean?
It's
like
ridiculous.
Every college graduate I know works at Trader Joe's.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And nothing on Trader Joe's. It's fine. It's a great job. But I mean, yeah, great. You're $100 fucking grand in debt, and you're, at best, the fucking manager at Trader Joe's. You know what I mean? And guess what? The managers at Trader Joe's, the guys who move it real quick, are a bunch of punk rock motherfuckers that fucking didn't do shit. You know what I mean? Besides have real world experience. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, man, like it's goofy to me. Me and Rosie used to fight about it a lot. She's like, when the kids go to college, I'm all, fuck that, dude. They're not going to. Why? You know what I mean? Like, don't, why? Like, obviously you want to do your community college shit or whatever, figure out who you are. I'm a firm believer in you fucking off in your 20s. You know what I mean? Like, figure out who you want to be, but fucking, don't get yourself into $100,000 in fucking debt.
No.
Come out with a art history fucking degree and then be surprised when there's no jobs for it.
Yeah.
It's like,
honestly, that's what I did, man. I fucked off in my 20s, and I was playing music, I was having a good time, and I didn't know where the hell I was going or what I was going to do. I wasn't a good high school student, and then I started college immediately after high school, and just was over it, right? Just like not into it at all. And, playing music, that's what I was going to do. And I had no, delusions that I was going to make it per se, but I wanted to make it my way. If I could sustain, if I could tour, if I could make records, which, I never did any of that because it's just, the bands, they didn't do it. And I remember my mom, she kept saying, when are you gonna give up the music? When are you gonna grow up? Not in a dick way, like she wasn't being mean. She's like, when are you gonna, move on? And I said, you know, I remember telling her once, I'm like, when I'm 22, Mom, when I'm 22, if the band's not doing anything, I'll go to college. And I was 22, and she said, so you going to school? And I said, when I'm 25, Mom.
Yeah.
When I'm 25, if I haven't done anything, I'll go to school. And that's actually what happened when I was about 25. Maybe about 20. Yeah, I went back to college when I was about 25, and then did all my, lower division work, and then completely changed direction when I was 27. And that's when I moved into the engineering, path. And it was because of a job that I had.
Yeah.
So actually the job that I got,
Geared
influenced my education, choices. So
that's cool, man.
How I got here. So
that's a trip.
Yeah.
So something I read today, Ventura just announced. Did you see this? That they just declared racism in Ventura County a public health crisis. Did you see this?
In the county?
Yeah.
Wow. No, where do I read this?
It's there's an article. I can pull it up. I'm sure.
I'll look for it. That's actually that's kind of smart, actually.
And it's and I think it's a part of a broader. Here, I'll share my screen real quick. It's part of a broader thing. I just thought it'd be because you kind of work in the area. I was wondering if you heard anything about.
No, that's really interesting.
Let me see. Can you see that?
Not yet. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. So Ventura County, racism is declared a public health crisis. So it's all in this effort to, obviously with George Floyd and, Breonna Taylor and all that, basically the resolution has been passed where they're going to start discussions involving the Ventura County Sheriff and community organizers, forum of panelists, black lawyers of Ventura, stuff like that, to start trying to, figure out, fair rent and, a bunch of different kind of things I read through today. But I was like, wow, man, that's a weird, and that headline is obviously an attention grabber,
Sure.
What I mean? But I thought, man, Ventura's always known for being such a weirdo Republican kind of fucking staunchy, like county. They're the only ones that won't let you sell weed still. They're fucking, like all these weird things, I thought, wow, what an interesting fucking move to do that. You know what I mean? It's just, especially with the political climate right now, obviously.
Yeah.
It's insane. You know what I mean?
But
yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, I'll check that out. I'm interested in reading that. So
yeah, it's not much of a fucking thing. It's basically an announcement,
Yeah, I looked it up while you were. There's a couple other articles I could read, but yeah, I don't know. I for the longest time, I don't know if you knew this, but I've wanted to run for city council here in Ventura.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's something I always wanted to do. I mean, this is my home. I'm born here. You too, right? You were born here.
No, not in Ventura.
Oh, you weren't?
No, I moved here when I was like 12. But
I knew you grew up here, but I'm actually third generation. So being on the city council is something I've always wanted to do, and not so much now, because their meetings are at night and I'm fucking tired.
Yeah.
But
I don't know how well are you used to wearing a suit and tie and all that?
I could do all that. Yeah, that's no problem. But some
of
those guys
it's
show
a trip,
up,
dude. Especially with like what's going on with the fucking presidency and all this stuff, you're just like, oh my god, like 2020 has been a general shit show. Besides the silver lining of the Lakers and the Dodgers, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
There ain't much else. It's been.
You know what though? Like honestly, like with what Trump's doing right now, like I'm kind of excited because I can't wait to see how it ends. Like this is I'm not excited about Joe Biden,
No one
and
is.
it's really it's so hilarious how the Trump supporters think that all these people are Biden supporters. And I heard a guy saying, that two different instances. One, a person, and I'm sure you've heard this, but he says, how come, people, Biden supporters aren't really all behind him. They're just more anti-Trump.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, exactly. That's it. Don't you get that? And then another guy, I heard in public, he was ranting to another guy. And he said, all these people think Biden's the Messiah. And I actually these are strangers, and I butted in and I go, no one thinks that, dude. Like nobody thinks that. I said, this is, we need to get Trump out of office. No one loves Biden. I mean, I'm sure that there's, so out of there were 75 million voters, right? So out of those 75 million, let's say maybe 30% of those people are Biden supporters.
Right.
They don't realize that, freaking 40 million people voted just to get Trump out of office. And
not only that, just to not hear the fucking guy's name anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this dude has occupied so much mental fucking space in my brain. And it's not because I hate his guts. You know what I mean? He's a moron. I knew exactly who he was when he got in office.
Yeah.
Not one thing he's done has been a surprise to me.
Nothing.
You know what I mean? I've been saying the whole time. The whole time he's the kid that loses the game and wipes the table. You know what I mean? Like, it's going to be
everything happening right now. We've had a preview to. We knew.
Yeah.
Like, I are you surprised? I'm not surprised because he's been talking about election fraud for 5 years, even before he became president.
100%.
And he's been sowing the seeds, and his base is so freaking dumb that they just eat it up. And
it's hard, man. I'm just honestly, man, like, I'm just excited to forget who the fucking president is for a minute.
Yeah, that'll be nice.
You know what I mean? Like really, it's like, and I heard this really funny comedian named Tim Dillon was saying, like, it was on a podcast I was listening. He's all, dude, look, I'm not a Biden guy. He's all, Trump's out of his fucking mind. He's all, but it's like America's been on a coke binge for 4 fucking years. And it's either like, do you guys want to ride it off the rails until we all fucking die? Or do you guys want to kind of slow down a little bit and maybe go to rehab and fucking, you know what I mean? Try to fucking have some sort of like, pump the brakes just for a minute. You know what I mean? It was like, dude, it's the perfect analogy, man. Like, I just can't wait to not remember who the fucking president is. I want I want a warm corpse in that fucking position.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's exactly what it, like, you know what I mean? I'll be shocked if he makes it 2 terms alive. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not planning on that either, but one thing that, our side, I don't know if we have a side, but basically anti-Trump people, I'm one of them. One thing I want to say this is because it's important for people to recognize and understand that there is one thing about Trump that I actually like a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, in these 4 years, he hasn't been bombing the fuck out of other countries.
Yeah.
And I got to say, like, that I care about that. Like, that's a big deal to me.
You're not wrong. And I, me and Scheimer talk about it all the time. And there are things that Trump's done that are, rolling, you know how this goes. Rolling back some of this red tape on some of the environmental shit, obviously not gutting national parks and all this stuff, but some of this environmental shit that really cannot fucking get jobs started, stuff like that. That's the type of stuff, some of it can help. But what, yes, he has not been bombing countries, but he has been actively mentally fucking fracturing this place.
100%.
So
I'm not trying to defend him.
I'd almost rather the drone strikes in Yemen than fucking, you know what I mean? Than the mental fucking
I literally
bombing that we've experienced over the last 4 years.
has nothing to do with defending the guy. It's
Right,
just that I do appreciate that we haven't been bombing everybody. There's no other like good thing I could say about the guy. I mean, I think it's funny and not in a actually humorous way, but I think Trump is the beginning of the end of this country. And I think we're going to see a lot of change. Our kids are going to see a lot of change. And I think the U.S., I don't know when, I don't know, how long it's going to take, but I think the U.S. will end at some point. And I think that Trump is actually going to be sort of the catalyst that started, because his base, so there's going to be a change to the Republican Party.
Yeah.
And we're going to see it. And because there's going to be a lot of Trump wannabes coming out now, and some of these younger Republicans, whether they're in the Senate or governors, whomever, they're going to sort of adopt some of his policy. And it's like, I have a buddy who is real conservative, but he's also really intelligent. And, he's like, he didn't vote he actually voted for Biden. And I thought it was funny because I told him, I said, well, you can vote for Joe Jorgensen. And he told me after the election, he said, I voted for Biden. I said, really? I gave you an out. And he says, we're in California. What's it matter? And I'm
right.
like, okay.
Your votes,
but
Republican
anyway,
in California, you're done anyway.
One thing I told him that, if Trump would have kept his mouth shut for 4 years, he probably would get reelected.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, policy-wise, the reality is he hasn't actually done very much. Right. I mean, you can put together a list of things he's done. Some of them are largely symbolic. He actually hasn't really done very much. And people try to talk up his Middle East peace thing. It's very symbolic. I mean, the UAE, like,
there's very little actual policy that's come out of it. You know what I mean?
It's crazy. It's not. It's hard to call it a success if it's nothing more than symbolic success. But
you're right. If he would have shut the fuck up for at least like the last couple years, not only that, if he would have leveled with the American people on how bad COVID is and actually fucking did the things he was supposed to do and really locked it down. No, I'm not saying lock the country down. I think some of this has been handled a little fucking crazy, but
sure.
If he would have, done the American people the favor and leveled with them and honest and kept it fucking, hey, this is going to be really fucking bad. And we would have got through without fucking the chaos that we're in now. He would have absolutely fucking won. You know what I mean? Like, there's no way, and there are things that, I mean, yes, he's a fucking asshole. He's a sexist. He's probably a fucking racist. I mean, it's, he is
racist.
There's a lot of signs that point towards it.
It's funny because he thinks he's not a racist because he has black friends.
Right.
Like that. That doesn't not make you a racist.
But what he is this, and I heard this really good take from this guy Bo the Fifth. He does a short YouTube things. Really smart fucking dude. Always thinks outside the box and stuff. But he was saying that how dangerous this time really is. Because even when Trump does secede or gets ripped out or whatever the fuck happens, what this does is this paves the way for another one who is fucking smarter and is more mild-mannered and can speak well and fucking, can figure out how to manipulate these types of ideologies into our country. And, guess what? It's been here. This country started on blood and slavery and fucking torture. And we really have not reckoned with that. Besides what we did to the black people, but what we did to Native Americans. And I say that the proverbial we. My family ancestry is not from here. We were enslaving the Turks back then. Wherever I was from. But it's like we've never really reckoned with it. And I think that it's hard because when I see my kids and I see your kids, and we're not raising our kids like this. You know what I mean? And I try to have hope because my kids don't have an issue with this. My kids at 12 years old understand more about politics than I ever fucking did being a punk rocker. You know what I mean? And so that gives me hope that Like, this shit eventually will go away. That type of mindset will fucking go away. But also, America's too big. You know what I mean? Like, it's too fucking big, man. Like,
That's it.
how
And
are you not going to splinter off at a certain point?
We're too big and frankly too diverse. And these some people in some regions, I don't get it, man. I don't get their way of thinking. And they want, people talk about conservatives as wanting to preserve the 50s or whatever. Okay, great. If that's your thing, if you're a good person and you want that kind of cleaver family lifestyle, like, cool, right? But
yeah, if you're a white dude, you know what I mean?
But no, so that's actually my point, is what I'm getting at is, in parts of the country, what they're actually talking about is preserving white dominance.
Right. Yeah.
Period.
That's it.
I mean,
White people are
there's
afraid
no
to lose their
denying
power,
that. And so, I talk to people about, like, what you mentioned about acknowledging, the United States acknowledging genocide of the indigenous people and the Native American people. And Barack Obama was trying to make sort of strides towards acknowledging America's past, and that just pissed people off.
Oh yeah.
That I believe that there should be reparations both for Black Americans and Native Americans. I'm not going to put a dollar amount on it because I have no idea, but I guarantee if you took a tiny, tiny little splinter out of the military budget, you'd probably make a lot of really happy Americans, right?
Yeah.
And I'm talking,
who has the best take on that is Killer Mike from Run the Jewels.
Yeah.
His fucking take on reparations is so fucking smart. He says, listen, I want Black land ownership. Yeah. I want land ownership. And not only that, like, in certain areas, like he even went as far as he's like, I want all, maybe 50% or 60% of all, like, marijuana fucking entrepreneurs to be Black. Shit like that. You know what I mean? Like, he's so smart with that because he understands that the way to true fucking freedom is owning your own fucking land, is owning your property, owning your own business, like what he just did recently by creating his own bank. I don't know if you saw that. I mean, this fool just started his own fucking bank. Yeah. Who does that shit? Yeah. I mean, he has the best fucking take. It's hard for me to say, like, everyone you get a car and you get a car. It's irresponsible. It's fucking dumb. You know what I mean? Because we're built on consumerism. We're built on blowing money. But if you were to actually really deal with the things that, the real fucking issues, the only way you're going to move past this stuff is to really acknowledge it and fucking try to make it better. You know what I mean? But when I talk to the right wing, psychos that I know, it's like, oh, we're just supposed to give everyone money. It's like, dude, no, man. But it is way more complicated than you understand. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, and it's more complicated than I understand because I'm not a fucking Black man and I'm not a Native American.
No.
And realistically, I can tell a cop to go fuck himself without being fear of being shot. You know what I mean? Like, I have these privileges, you know what I mean? And I'm not going to say that I have to bow down to every single person's whimpering right or beck and call for anything. But, I do acknowledge that myself, I have fucking rights as, like, a white dude, you know what I mean? Like, and it's, it's hard. Like, it's honestly part of the reason I shaved my beard off, dude. It sounds weird, but, like, when all this shit was happening and I'm not trying to make it anything a political statement, but when all this stuff started happening with the George Floyd protests and all this stuff, I looked, 20 plus years of having fucking a big, huge beard as a white fucking dude with tattoos.
I see.
And I started thinking, like, I started thinking about identity and what is my identity? Am I, like, the big fucking white tattoo dude with a beard? Like, you know what I mean? And I really thought, like, it was like a crisis of identity. Like, fuck, dude, like, everyone, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not, yes, I went to some of the protests and all that stuff, but I really started looking at myself, like, deeply, like, and I had to really think about like my own personal biases as a punk rocker who's punched Nazis, who fucking generally fights for the fucking, the things that we all fight for. Even I have built-in fucking biases, and I have built-in things that I wasn't like recognizing about myself. And I'm not saying that having a beard makes you a racist, but I spent 20 years as this one type of fucking guy.
Right.
And I started thinking like, dude, if we're all going to start taking a hard look at ourselves, you know what I mean? Like, why not challenge the one thing that has been me for 20 plus fucking years? You know what I mean? And it might sound dumb, you know what I mean? Like, but it was a big thing for me. I mean, I seriously almost broke down. I couldn't look at myself in a mirror for a month. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, but it challenged me to get outside of myself. And, and I'm not saying it has anything to do with the fucking plight that's going on in America, but, I just thought like, man, if we could all just take a minute and really put ourselves in someone else's shoes and just see what it's like to live that fucking life, because it's really this is a classism issue. You know what I mean? Like,
100%.
I grew up just as poor as any fucking black guy in any black neighborhood.
Yeah.
Just as fucking poor. I dealt with the same shit. Yes, I'm not afraid to tell a cop to go fuck himself. But in Montalvo, when we got the cops called on us, guess who was talking to him? You know what I mean? Like, I was the one sitting, hey, Gringo, get in there, fucking talk to the cops. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's fine with me. I'm fine with it, but
Yeah.
just like, if people could really take a minute and just think about their fucking, what, how lucky they are, or what it is, you might really fucking reconsider some things,
Yeah. It's funny because, I love, people talk about, I didn't grow up with privilege, I had to work for everything I had. And it's like completely missing the point.
Right.
Sorry, bud.
And,
like
at certain times I felt like that. You know what I mean?
I've never, once I, kind of started listening and appreciating, the words from other people, I got it, and my wife gets it, and so we could talk about it. And I'm fully aware of every ounce of privilege that I've had. It doesn't mean I could be aware of it. Like you said, step in other people's shoes. We can't. Like, we can't know. We can sort of sympathize, but we can never actually empathize with what's happened to people based on their skin color. I mean, have you ever been discriminated against? Probably I have, but it isn't the same.
Not the same. It's not the same, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I've never once had to explain to my children that if you have to talk to a cop, you keep your hands out of your pockets, and you know what I mean? Like, I've never had to have the talk with my kids, like, you know what I mean? Like, that type. I've never had to experience that, you know what I mean? And I'm not ignorant enough to think that, my plight is the same as theirs, but this really is like this whole system has been based on, first of all, keeping people divided. And, the more people are divided, the easier they are to control. But really, it's a class system. I mean, it's, there's rich and poor, and there used to be that middle fucking gap of, middle Americans. Like, I grew up in low poverty. You grew up in maybe fucking mid, you know what I mean? Like, maybe low, you know what I mean? If you're from Montalvo, probably low.
Yeah.
But, that middle class has gotten so fucking far apart at this point. Now it's either the super fucking rich or everyone's poor. And it's exactly how they've constructed it. You know what I mean? It's,
well, again,
I say they, like the proverbial they, because obviously the deep state,
even the way I grew up, I mean, I grew up, my parents divorced when I was very young. So we were very poor. And, but, I think that you could probably find a way to connect this to, not being wealthy privileged, but white privileged, and that ownership kind of what you were mentioning before. But my grandparents actually owned our home that we lived in, and so even though we were dirt poor, we had a home. and that's everything, right? If you have a roof over your head, I mean, that's kind of everything. And so
massive, dude.
we, you know, as a kid, you know, I wanted a Pal Peralta skateboard, but instead I got a Nash.
Right.
I wanted a Diamondback, but I got a Huffy, you know, and that's just the way it was. And
I still got a scar on my arm from a Huffy, dude.
Yeah. And, you know, it's funny, Craig, because I make really good money.
Right.
And I'm still poor.
Totally.
And it's here. It's not, my bank account's fine, but in my head, I still behave like I grew up poor, and you know, I mean, the way I parent, you know, the way I try to teach our kids about, you know, waste and you know, not wasting food, wasting energy, wasting water, you know, and it all costs money, so it's wasting my money, you know. It's that mentality doesn't go away. It doesn't change, and it doesn't, you know, change who we were growing up, you know. And that's, you know, kind of brings us back to, you know, how we identified with the punk rock culture and why we were part of it. And you know, and you know, my kids, you know, they don't realize it, but because they don't really listen to punk rock music, they like some, but they don't realize that, you know, from me, culturally, their upbringing, you know, they are being brought up punk rock. They just don't know it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, it's beautiful, man. Yeah, you got to sneak it in on them.
Yeah.
No matter how many terrible YouTube songs they play you.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it's ridiculous, man. Well, fuck, man. It's been great talking to you, brother. I mean, thanks so much for coming on. You know what I mean?
I hope we talked about things you wanted to, and I hope
it's just whatever. I always like catching up with you, man.
As far as I'm concerned, it was just a good conversation.
That's exactly what I want. I don't want no agenda, just catching up with buddies.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining in. Check out the Patreon. I'm going to be uploading the old original podcast here in the next few weeks. I'm going to be uploading all that to the Patreon. So if you want to hear the original podcast, there's like 14, 15 episodes that's going to be coming on patreon.com/getheavypodcast. You can always get our masks and t-shirts are going to be up. They're on getheavypodcast.bigcartel.com. Barney, thank you so much, brother. Anything you want to plug besides the fact that you're starting a band soon?
No, but love you. Thanks for having me on.
Love you too, brother.
All right, man.
All right.